and the judges can introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the National We the People competition. We're really glad to see you here this afternoon, and we look forward to your presentation. My name is Dan Taubman. I'm a senior judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals in Denver, Colorado.
My name is Ali Khan. I'm an attorney in Chicago, as well as an alum of the program, representing Illinois at the national competition way back in 1998.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ben Glickman. I work for the California Attorney General's Office. Also an alumnus of this program, I participated in the national finals for California back in 1995. So I've been on that side of the table of sorts. So congratulations on making it this far.
So we'd like you to introduce yourselves and your teacher for us, please.
Hi, I'm Sydney Dwyer.
I'm Samantha Carley.
And I am Max Brager, and we are representing Unit 3 of Robert C. Byrd's AP Government class under Mr. Phillips, who is being subbed in by Ms. Looker.
Thank you very much. Not surprisingly, we're going to ask you question 2 today. I'll read the question, then we'll hear your opening statement and then have a chance to ask you some questions and then conclude with some feedback. There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into 2 great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a united or divided government? You may begin.
In Federalist Number 10, James Madison noted that the formation of factions in society was inevitable, and he was right. As humans, we all have differing opinions and perspectives, so the formation of political parties was inescapable. The first 2 parties, which formed around the time the Constitution was written, were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, who disagreed about the new federal government and how powerful it should be. The Federalists supported the ratification of the Constitution, but the Anti-Federalists opposed it on the basis that the new federal government would be too powerful. After the ratification of the Constitution, the Anti-Federalist movement was exhausted, and another political party emerged in 1792. The Democratic Republicans formed in opposition to the Federalist Party. They favored a weak national government and strict interpretation of the Constitution, while the Federalists favored a strong national government and loose interpretation of the Constitution. Even today, government involvement is still a highly debated topic between our current political parties. Democrats favor a stronger government and Republicans favor a weaker one. Since the formation of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist parties, America has argued over how powerful the government should be.
When America was creating the Constitution, there was not a mention of the 2-party system in the document, though the first president, George Washington, was known to oppose the multiple party system as quoted. However, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to assert for themselves the reins of government. Today, the 2-party system has encompassed all Americans, and they proudly boast and find their identity in a party and what it means. Many leaders are voted into office just because of the party they belong to. And while parties can be good and help like-minded people find each other, as well as keep the power in the people's grasp as addressed in the Declaration of Independence, there is this constant divide that leads each party to drag down their opposing side. Whether it is topics such as the federal government's role in states' rights, civil rights, or privacy rights, like in the court case Roe versus Wade, where America today is split heavily in their parties of being either pro-life or pro-choice. And when issues like these arise and parties have different views of how to handle the different ideologies that are present, it becomes an internal war of who is right and who is wrong. The country was founded to be a safe place for any person to be anything they wanted, to believe what they wanted. Yet, when our beliefs differ from one party to another, a strong rivalry starts to form, and things never get done when a people are at each other's throats.
It is important that the government never be overwhelmingly uniform in its policy and ideology for our large republic. The minute ideological diversity is eliminated, freedom of thought and expression leave with it. One could say that there are no disadvantages to a unified government, because if everyone is working towards the same policy, there is nothing hindering its implementation, as seen with societies such as Sparta. But what lies underneath is a cruel mistreatment of the lower class, whose minority voices are completely snuffed out. As the nation stands, we have two supreme parties who swing as a pendulum towards power, and even now our processes are designed to take time and support the smaller voices of the nation. But this can also create a divided system. Would it not be best to have multiple parties to prevent political monopoly? Madison wrote, "The regulation of these various and interfering interests form the principal task of modern legislation, and involves the spirit of party and faction in the necessary and ordinary operations of government. We can see as a trend that when other parties did exist, they were inevitably absorbed, Whig, Federalist, etc. The unified government seldom listens to the outsider, while the divided government seldom agrees and must take time to come to a compromise. Our government is limited to prevent a tyrannical monarchy, a forcibly unified government, as was outlined within our Declaration of Independence."
Thank you for your opening statement. I'd like to pick up on what you were talking about regarding third parties like the Whigs and the Federalists. Can you give us examples of other third parties and tell us why you think they haven't become major parties in our history?
Our government is more bicameral, and that the parties, Democrat and Republic, have just found a larger voice and control most of the power based on its population.
Can you mention some other third parties that in our history besides the Whigs and the Federalists that you mentioned?
Yes, there were the anti-federalists who were against the Constitution, but those voices faded away when the Constitution was ratified.
I was just going to follow up quickly on the third party. So I agree that they haven't gained much traction historically. Is there anything that is that a problem, number one? And if so, what might we change to make third parties have a better chance? What changes can we make?
I do
My
think
opinion-
it's
Oh, sorry, Sam, you can speak.
I do think it is a problem because I think in America, the Democratic and Republican sides are like the majority of what we're hearing, and we have nobody in the middle saying where they can see both sides. And if we don't find where we can see both sides, how do we make compromise?
I disagree with Sam on this. I think that it's not that big of a problem because the two-party system, it does generalize our views more because you have to pick left or right. But I think it does help us get things done easier than if we had multiple parties. It's easier to decide.
See, going off of what my peers have been saying, I think that the large Democratic and Republican parties have their strengths and advantages because there are only two, and thus can come to a consensus easier than, say, like 4 or 5 other parties all like vying for the same amount of speaking time. These two parties are beneficial, but one could say that with more parties, more minority voices are being heard because people with similar ideologies are being grouped together rather than the blanket Democrat or Republican. There are more choices and more precise measures of what you believe in. So there are advantages and disadvantages to having multiple or fewer parties.
Let me ask you all this, since this is often a hot button issue when it comes to politics and political parties. Do you think we should abolish the Electoral College?
That is an interesting question, because one could say that with the Electoral College, they could undermine the principle of having a large republic, and that the people decide who they want to represent them. And with the Electoral College, you have a smaller amount of people making this large decision. And in certain cases, such as the 2016 election, overruling the majority of America who voted for Hillary Clinton in favor of Donald Trump.
That is a great question. I can see the advantages and disadvantages of the Electoral College, because it was made to give voices to smaller states, and give them, but I feel like since some states have so many people that it is unfair with the winner takes all concept, that all of those electoral votes go to this person and then, or this candidate, and then the other candidate who, like Max said, Hillary Clinton, won by the popular vote, doesn't get to be president when they won by the majority of Americans.
I agree with Sam. I believe we should switch to the popular vote because I think it allows more American voices to be heard.
I'd like to go back to the beginning of your opening statement about the differences in our country that led to the creation of the two political parties. During the time leading up to the Civil War, what were the different political parties and what interests, or how are they different from one another?
Thank you for this question. We've seen sort of a switch in regards to how we view the different parties. Democrats wanted wanted slaves, and the Republicans were more against slavery. So you can see this switch in not ideologies, but just how people view the parties.
So I think most folks would say that we're a pretty polarized country right now, and that's at least in part due to the two-party system. What would you propose to reduce some of that polarization and increase, bipartisanship and compromise?
I would say that one of the best ways of bridging this gap between the different parties is by humanizing the members of each party. It's easy just to yell at a faceless company or a faceless party, but if you take the time to appreciate where they are coming from and realize that they are human just as you are, then it changes the conversation between right and wrong, or who believes in what they are saying. You get the sense of they are not inherently wrong, they just have a different mindset.
I agree with Max 100% on humanizing the other side, because I think we have gotten it in our heads that, oh, if you don't believe the same way as me, you're disgusting and you hate me. And I think that is not healthy for a country that is trying to be united.
Since we're almost out of time, real quick, just to build upon that, how would you go about trying to humanize the other party? How would you systemically try to implement something that would cause that?
If it were up to me, I would say that there should be more political debates between parties where you can see how each other thinks, even not an election year, just to refresh the people on how the party thinks, their ideologies, to really inform people on who they choose to follow. Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's show our appreciation for the team. So I thought you did a good job answering all parts of the question. I like that you started with Federalist 10 and talking about Madison's views about political parties, and then talking about the differences between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. I thought you made a good point in saying that the Constitution doesn't say anything at all about political parties. We haven't heard that from anybody, but I think that that's definitely worth mentioning. And that may show that the framers didn't anticipate that there would be political parties. So I thought that that was good. I think I liked your mention of saying that given the current gridlock, that politicians should be humanized. I remember reading recently that somebody in the Senate or the House said recently that we never go to lunch or dinner with people from the other party like we used to do. And so I think, that even though it seems a pretty basic point to say that we should humanize people, I think that that's definitely a valid point that would help to address the gridlock in our country. I think that I liked your answer to the question about the Civil War, about saying that the alignment of the party seems to be different from the way it is now, and that before the Civil War, it was the Republican Party that was against slavery. Not that the Republican Party now is pro-slavery, but the Republicans generally have a more conservative view about racial issues, and that the Democrats before the Civil War were pro-slavery, and that's certainly not the case now. The other thing I would mention is that in connection with third parties, there are some other examples of third parties that you might have mentioned, like Ross Perot when he was a presidential candidate, Ralph Nader when he was a presidential candidate, and the Green Party, which was a party in recent elections. So I thought that so that was an area where you might have said a little bit more, but overall, I think you did a very nice job, and you should be pleased with your presentation this afternoon.
First of all, again, congratulations for being here. I know it's a lot of work, that goes into this. So, please, feel proud of yourselves for that. I echo everything my colleague just said. I liked how you all participated. You felt free to disagree. You had opinions. It's a good point about the humanizing our side. And when I asked you a question as to, okay, that's great. How are you going to do that? I don't know if having debates will work, but at least you had thought it through. And I appreciated that you had at least put some effort into, hey, this might be a way to humanize, showing some thought process behind it. And on the electoral college question, I'd wish perhaps you had touched upon a state like Nebraska and the way they apportion electoral college votes. But other than that, I said, look, we really enjoyed the conversation, and overall, really nice job.
Yeah, I would echo everything that's been said. I thought the prepared remarks did a very nice job of answering all parts of the question. Was easy to follow, and you had some good support there. A little surprised we never heard your Senator Joe Manchin mentioned. He's, I think he's relevant to this question because he's the most powerful person in America right now because of our two-party system, right? And so, is that how we should be? I mean, in some ways, you as voters or future voters of West Virginia have more power right now than just about citizens of any other state. So I don't know. It's an interesting quirk of our system. But I thought on the questions, I thought you did a pretty nice job. On my question about is third parties a problem, I really did appreciate the conversation and the disagreement among the panel. I wish we might have heard a little bit more about what we might be able to do to increase third parties' viability in America. There's lots of proposals out there about, ranked choice voting, multi-member districts, different things that could be done, at least theoretically, to give third parties a better chance. And then I thought on the rest of the questions, I really liked where we ended on reducing polarization just by humanizing. Because my colleague mentioned, it seems obvious when you say it, but unfortunately, it's not obvious to all, and including the people that it's most essential that they actually start doing it. So I appreciate that. Congratulations. You're done, right? for the class. Yes, congratulations. I hope it was a great weekend for you, and yeah, good luck.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck. Thank you very much for your